For years ago, I never could have imagined that buying a house with a small, 10-foot wide easement to a lake would lead to one of the most exhausting, expensive, and frankly absurd battles of my life. To be clear, this isn't just some vague promise of lake access. The easement is a deeded right, documented on my deed, my neighbor's deed, the land survey, and even the original purchasing agreements. But apparently, my neighbor decided that none of that mattered. It started innocently enough. Shortly after I moved in, I noticed my neighbor acting strangely possessive about the area around the easement. They'd glare at me whenever I walked down to the lake or make snide comments about sharing the space. But I thought that was just their personality. Some people don't like neighbors near their property. I never expected it to escalate the way it did. One day, I came home to find that the stairs leading down to my easement had been completely removed. Not damaged, not rotting, just gone. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. Maybe they'd collapsed, or the city had removed them for repairs. But then I saw it, a newly built stone wall, right across where my easement should have been. My neighbor had completely blocked my access to the lake. I was furious. I knocked on their door to confront them, and their response still leaves me speechless. They said, "That easement isn't yours anymore. It's on my land, so I decided it's better for everyone if it's closed off." Better for everyone? They have their own private lakefront, and yet they're fighting me over 10 feet of shared walkway? I tried explaining the legal situation. The easement was documented on both our deeds, and they had no right to block it, but they waved me off like I was a nuisance. When talking didn't work, I consulted an attorney. My lawyer assured me this was an open and shut case. The easement was legally mine, and no one could take it away. But what my lawyer didn't warn me about was how petty and spiteful my neighbors could be. The legal nightmare begins. I filed a lawsuit to have my stairs replaced and the wall removed, thinking it would be resolved quickly. Oh, how naive I was. From the moment I filed the suit, my neighbors made it their mission to drag things out for as long as possible. They ignored initial filings, forcing us to request additional motions. They asked for endless extensions and changed attorneys twice, each time delaying the process further. I had to attend multiple court hearings just to keep the case moving. Meanwhile, every time I walked past their property, they'd smirk at me like they were winning. The sheer audacity of their behavior was unbelievable. I tried to stay calm, reminding myself that the law was on my side, but the stress was constant. I couldn't even enjoy my home anymore. Every time I looked at the blocked easement, it was a reminder of their selfishness. After almost 3 years of back-and-forth nonsense, the case finally went before a judge. And guess what? I won in a summary judgment. The judge ruled that the easement was valid and ordered my neighbors to remove the wall and replace the stairs at their expense. I thought that was the end of it. But no, it wasn't. 3 weeks after the ruling, my neighbors filed a motion of error, claiming the judge had made a mistake. They argued that the easement wasn't as clear-cut as the court believed. Mind you, this easement is on every legal document associated with the property, but they were grasping at straws. It was obvious they didn't believe they'd win, they just wanted to waste more of my time and money. The motion dragged things out for another 3 months. Finally, the court reviewed their arguments and rejected them, upholding the original judgment. The neighbors were ordered once again to return my stairs and remove the wall. But do you think that stopped them? Of course not. The appeal. Now, they filed an appeal. They're determined to bankrupt me over a 10-foot wide strip of land that doesn't even affect their private lakefront. I can't understand their mindset. They're spending tens of thousands of dollars fighting me, money they could use for literally anything else. A new car, vacations, home improvements, charity. Instead, they're fixated on this ridiculous, ego-driven crusade to deny me my legal rights. What baffles me the most is their audacity. It's not like this is their only access to the lake. They have an entire lakefront property of their own, but they're hellbent on denying me the use of a shared walkway that's rightfully mine. Their arrogance is almost comical. The toll. This has been exhausting, emotionally and financially. The legal fees are piling up, and while I've been able to hold my ground so far, I'm terrified they'll drag this out for years until I can't afford to fight anymore. Meanwhile, my neighbors keep living their lives like nothing's wrong. They throw parties, host barbecues, and pretend they aren't actively trying to ruin mine. It's not just about the stairs or the wall anymore. It's the principle. They think they're above the law, and they're counting on me giving up so they can win by default. But I can't let them. This isn't just about my access to the lake, it's about standing up for myself and not letting their entitlement go unchecked. I don't know how this will end. Maybe they'll finally lose the appeal and have no choice but to comply with the court's order. Or maybe they'll find some other loophole to keep the fight going. All I know is, I'm not backing down. They might have more money and resources than I do, but they're not going to take what's legally mine. Not without a fight. Update: they lost the appeal. It's been a few months since I last shared my story, and I finally have an update. Spoiler alert, my entitled neighbors lost the appeal. The court upheld the original judgment, once again ordering them to remove the wall, rebuild my stairs, and restore my access to the lake easement. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? I certainly did. But of course, my neighbors found a way to make things even messier. The stalling game. After the appeal decision came down, I thought they'd finally give up and comply. Instead, they started dragging their feet. The court gave them 60 days to complete the work, but as the deadline approached, they hadn't done a single thing. The wall was still there, the stairs were still gone, and they weren't answering any of my communications. I had to go back to my attorney, again, and file a motion to enforce the court order. My lawyer warned me that this would probably get drawn out, but I was fed up. The court had ruled twice in my favor. I wasn't about to let them weasel out of this. After the motion was filed, a hearing was scheduled, and the judge was clearly done with their nonsense. He gave them a stern warning and set a new, much shorter deadline, 30 days, no exceptions. If they didn't comply this time, the court would impose fines and potentially hold them in contempt. Their petty revenge. Now, here's where it gets ridiculous. Instead of simply following the order, my neighbors decided to make the process as inconvenient as possible. They hired a contractor who worked at a snail's pace, tearing down the wall piece by piece over weeks instead of days. The new stairs they installed were the cheapest, flimsiest set imaginable, literally unfinished wood with no handrails. It was like they wanted to meet the bare minimum requirement while flipping me the metaphorical bird. I wasn't about to let them get away with that. I documented everything and sent the photos to my attorney, who argued that the shoddy construction didn't comply with the original judgment. The court agreed, ordering them to redo the stairs properly. The look on their faces when the ruling came down was priceless. The aftermath. At long last, my easement is fully restored. The stairs are solid and safe, and the wall is gone. It took years of stress, tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees, and countless sleepless nights, but I finally won. I can walk down to the lake again without feeling like I'm trespassing on my own property. But here's the kicker, my neighbors didn't even apologize. Not a word. They avoid eye contact if I see them outside, and I've heard through the grapevine that they're furious about the money they had to spend on this case. Apparently, they're now trying to sell their house, and good riddance. Lessons learned. If there's one thing this ordeal has taught me, it's to never underestimate the lengths some people will go to out of sheer spite. My neighbors could have saved themselves so much time, money, and stress by simply respecting the law, but their egos wouldn't let them. To anyone out there dealing with entitled people, keep fighting. Document everything, get a good attorney, and don't let them bully you into giving up. It might take time, but justice is worth it. And to my neighbors? I hope they enjoy their new, slightly lighter wallets. Maybe they'll think twice before messing with someone else's property rights. Or maybe not, but either way, they're not my problem anymore. Update 2, they're selling the house, but not without drama. It's been a few more months since my last update, and I've got some news. My neighbors have officially listed their house for sale. You'd think this would be the happy ending to the saga, but because this is them, they're making the process as chaotic as humanly possible. The real estate shenanigans. When I heard through the neighborhood gossip that they were selling, I couldn't help but feel a little relief. They've made my life miserable for years, and I've been counting the days until they're gone. But because the easement is a recorded part of both our properties, it's included in the disclosure for their listing. From what I've heard, this has been a major sticking point for potential buyers. Apparently, the neighbors have been trying to spin the situation in their favor by downplaying the easement, telling prospective buyers that it doesn't get used much or implying that I might not enforce it. They've even gone so far as to say the whole thing was just a misunderstanding with the previous owner, which is laughable given the mountain of legal documents proving otherwise. A few weeks ago, I actually saw a couple touring the property and overheard the wife asking the real estate agent about the easement. The agent gave a very careful, scripted response, which made me wonder if they've been coached to avoid mentioning the lawsuit altogether. I couldn't resist politely chiming in to say, "Oh, the easement is still fully active. I use it all the time." The look on their faces was priceless. Petty parting shots. Even though they're planning to move, my neighbors haven't stopped being petty. Last week, I noticed that they'd put up a row of hedges right next to the easement. They didn't technically block it this time, probably because they don't want another court battle, but it's clearly meant to be a visual barrier. I've had to remind myself not to take the bait, it's just one last attempt to assert control before they leave. To make things worse, they've started leaving passive-aggressive notes in their yard sale items. Yes, you read that right. They've been hosting garage sales to downsize, and I found out they've been putting notes on some of the items that say things like, "Selling this because we're leaving the area due to legal headaches caused by our neighbor." I laughed when someone showed me a picture, but honestly, who does that? The light at the end of the tunnel. Despite all this nonsense, I've heard that they've received a few offers and are seriously considering one of them. Fingers crossed, this means they'll be gone within the next month or two. I'm trying not to get too excited until the sale is finalized, but it's hard not to imagine how peaceful things could be once they're out of the picture. In the meantime, I've been trying to focus on the positives. The easement is fully restored, my stairs are in great shape, and I can finally enjoy the lake without feeling like I'm trespassing. If nothing else, this whole ordeal has made me appreciate my own resilience. One final twist? That said, I wouldn't be surprised if my neighbors pulled one last stunt before they leave. Part of me is bracing for them to try something ridiculous, like sabotaging the easement area out of spite or spreading more false rumors. But at this point, they're running out of ways to mess with me. Their time here is ticking down, and honestly, I'm ready to pop a bottle of champagne the day the moving truck pulls out of their driveway. Here's to hoping my next update will be about my new neighbors, hopefully the kind who understand what an easement is and don't feel the need to take petty revenge for losing a case they were destined to lose. Until then, I'm counting the days and enjoying the sweet satisfaction of knowing I stood my ground and won.